Alright guys, welcome to a crash course on understanding calories, macronutrients and metabolism. I understand that when you're first starting with your fitness journey, everything can feel extremely overwhelming. It can also seem like there are some protocols that sound like there should be magic bullets or silver bullets. And it's really important to note that there are nuances to everything. But the more that we can break down what is an accurate statement and also provide a little bit of knowledge behind how things work and how our body takes it in, that's what I want to really simplify today. If you're someone who has just started tracking their food, this workshop is for you. If you're someone who is thinking about looking after their nutrition because they seem to be eating a little bit too much but always feeling exhausted, this workshop is for you. This is broken down into a few key parts, so make sure you watch all of them. And other than that, don't forget to follow me as well. Now, getting started, the first thing that I want to discuss is calories and thermodynamics. Now, calories themselves, what are they? Well, a calorie is basically a unit of measurement that we use for the calories that we consume, the food that we eat. But it's really important to note that the way calories came about. So there's calories in kilojoules. 4 kilojoules equals about 1 calorie, roughly. But the way they came about is it's simply by putting food into a little sort of machine, a little sort of contraption, and then seeing how hot we get, or getting the machine hot enough or the water hot enough for the food that you put in the middle for heat to be released. And so inside the human body, we're not a bomb calorimeter. But when it comes to understanding how the calorie came about, this helps to provide some base so that when you're reading the back of a nutrition panel, you're able to just say, oh, hey, that's a calorie. Just because that calorie is on there doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate as well, but also doesn't necessarily mean that my body's going to take it in the same way. Now, we digest food. We're not a bomb calorimeter. So it's really important to remember that we are slightly different. Now, this is what a bomb calorimeter looks like. And so basically what we've got a little stirrer here, we've got some water, we have the food sample, we've got oxygen, the vessel that's holding the sample, and we've got the thermometer. So again, you can see how this diagram looks great. It looks like something you might find on the table in front of you in a lab class. But it's not inside of us. And that's what I really want to highlight, is that your body is so much more than just a bomb calorimeter. How we break things down and how we absorb things is a totally different ballgame when it comes to restoring our metabolism or just eating enough in general for our metabolism to thrive. Now, when it comes to calories, this is where we really need to highlight and prioritize that calories listed on a label are not necessarily going to be the calories absorbed or calories we can use from a particular food. Not to mention that food labels in general are not based off of the individual thing in the packet. Yes, we're probably going to be close, but even then the quantities inside the packet, they can vary sometimes up to 20 or 30% in terms of total weight. This means that the calories on the packet that say this is for a single serving can be just a little bit off. If the cooking process was slightly adjusted as well, it also means things can be off. So we need to not freak out about this and be like, well, how the hell am I supposed to understand how much I'm eating? I want you to understand your body is a beautiful vessel that has been burning calories ever since you were born. So when it comes to reading something and fixating on it, this is where I like to remind my girls that when it comes to reading something and being like, hold on, am I taking that in? Am I eating too much? We have to also ask the question, how does this food sit in my body and how does it work for me? Do I feel energized or do I feel exhausted? So absorption is what changes the ball game. Digestion, gut health, stress, sleep, hormones, digestive enzyme production, the current diversity and the current population of your gut all influence how much energy we can actually extract from a food. When it comes to thermodynamics, this is where when we understand calories, what a calorie is, then we understand thermodynamics, which is the process of how we burn calories. When it's applied to women's bodies, throughout the course of the month, our amount that we burn daily, so our amount required to function and to maintain, actually changes. Pair it with a highly stressed person versus someone who's not stressed at all, their calorie intake will also be different. And also based off of a lot of genetic factors, you'll typically find that your metabolism may be more prone to not working as well, which I hate using that term, but I really want to just remind you that with your metabolism, she's built in a way to keep you safe, which is absolutely awesome. It can be frustrating at times understanding the math behind it, but at the end of the day, when we understand thermodynamics, which is the heat that our body produces, breaking down food and the heat that our body produces to burn calories, we can start to piece things together a little bit easier. So with thermodynamics, imagine and just think about it this way. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So when you eat, our body must spend energy actually breaking that food down, which means what we eat plays a role in how many calories we burn. This is called the thermic effect of food, or for the sake of measurements, you might see it referred to as TEF. This is where it's really cool. So when we're prioritizing our protein, so you've just started your fitness journey and you really want to make sure that you are building as much muscle as possible, losing as much body fat as possible, eating healthy foods, protein is such a godsend, especially when it is from really nice sources, which I'll list some at the end. But when it comes to protein, this is what has the highest thermic effect of food. So when we're eating our proteins, it's going to require the most amount of calories for our body to actually break it down. Carbs are moderate, and then fats burn the least amount to be digested. They're also digested the slowest as well, which we'll get into that a bit more later too. So, when you feel or hear the term sluggish metabolism, it is real, but it's misunderstood, and it's something where your body actually isn't broken. Instead, she's just wired in a way that's going to help you to survive if you are in the Sahara, running away from a lion, and you've got to stay in a cave for a few days and there's no food. It's frustrating, but basically our bodies, down to a cellular level, they see that email that you absolutely freak out about, and your brain struggles to disassociate from the fact that this isn't actually a line in front of me. It's a simple email. I can shut my laptop, and we get the same physiological stress response happening in our body that makes our metabolism say, we don't know when we're getting food next, so it's time for us to hoard and save it. So usually what we'll see when we are struggling to lose weight despite starting our calorie deficits is maybe having a history of not actually eating that much food. So you've gone through periods of dieting or trying to diet. You've gone through periods of, I just don't feel like eating that much, I'm not training that much, I'm not moving my body that much. And then you've gone through periods of, I'm eating whatever I want, I don't care, I'm drinking on the weekend, whatever else floats your boat. I hope that that's still not you today. But coming across my page, if you're here and you are, then I hope that with the education we will share, that we can make some beautiful choices to move forward. And just understand that we get to improve these things. Just because you might feel like you've been given the short straw with something doesn't mean that we have to live a life of constantly feeling like we've got the short straw. When it comes to having the short straw, I feel like I shouldn't be where I am. I feel like when it comes to the way that I grew up and the upbringing I had with a single mother and trying to meet bills and having to pay rent, which was late, get an eviction notices often, and paying late rent in the bank by cash and finishing off the however many hundreds of dollars a week it was back then, finishing it off in silver coins, not knowing if we were going to have a home to live in the week before, having to watch my mum look after my brother and I, and not knowing and seeing her cry and not understanding why, and piecing all of these things together where it was like living in a constant state of money is for like people who are evil. I don't know why I can think of that. People who are evil or that sort of a thing. That was my upbringing. And going into starting my coaching business, I drove myself to believe that I wanted to build a successful business, but to build a successful business, it couldn't be too successful, or I wouldn't fit into that category of being someone who wasn't evil. So when it comes to tying that back into calories, your body being in a chronic state of stress, this can sometimes have started from an extremely young age. And this is something, again, where it's not like you maybe weren't in control of everything, and you won't be in control of everything ever. So that's also okay. You're not going to be perfect every time, but this is where when we can look back and just look at the feedback that our body's given us, the current data we have, we can make smarter decisions moving forward. So chronic dieting, chronic stress, low energy availability, so more frequent lower calories than what your body actually needs to regulate. This regulates our thyroid. Now, I've also struggled with thyroid issues, especially in my bodybuilding preps that I did, which sort of gave me a good sign. Hey, you probably shouldn't do any more bodybuilding preps. But bodies don't like to be without food for a long period of time, especially women's bodies. We do, not to say fasting does not have fantastic benefits, but strategic fasting for women's bodies makes things a lot easier. So we also, when we've had chronically underfed periods or chronically stressed times, we're going to find that we reduce NEAT, which NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or basically like you're fidgeting, you're moving around when you're talking. And then we're also going to have reduced reproductive hormone production. There's no use for your body to be producing sex hormones if it doesn't feel safe enough to reproduce. And this means if we're not doing that, we're also going to be downregulating our metabolism, again, for a state of safety. There's also poor sleep and low muscle mass that will start to occur, or if it's already occurring, that will also make it hard for your metabolism to hum at that sort of all cylinders firing engine, and instead we'll be stuck down at like an oscillating, I'm just surviving. Okay? So this is where, when it comes to clients, you'll often see you start your diet, you've been 80% adherent, and you're like, surely the little, like the extra maybe slice of pizza that one weekend 2 weeks ago, and you know, that extra piece of fruit last weekend, it's like, surely that's not enough for me to not have been adherent enough to have seen fat loss results. And this is where a client can be dieting with pretty good adherence, and that's all you need is pretty good adherence, but their weight will be oscillating around the same number for weeks on end. Change is still happening, so it's important to remember that, but albeit it is a lot slower and a lot more frustrating too. So, maintenance calories are therefore a range and not a number. So when it comes to our body trying to maintain homeostasis, trying to find safety, it's really important to understand that where we have our maintenance calories, or where we aim for that target, that's the goal. But where our body may currently be maintaining, if you're someone who's new to tracking and logging your food, you'll see that some days you're quite hungry and you eat a little bit over that number naturally. And other days you're not that active, you're not that hungry, or depending at what stage you're at in your cycle, and you eat less than that maintenance number. But what happens is, over the course of a week or a 2-week period, your body oscillates out to its average maintenance amount. So when we're trying to succeed in stabilizing our body's metabolism, what can be really helpful is that with our calories overall, and with picking our calories for a successful fat loss phase or a successful muscle building phase, is that we actually have a range of numbers to work around, rather than it being a fixed, I maintain on 2000, so I'll lose weight on 1600. It's like, if you maintain on roughly 2000, then you probably maintain on between 1800 to 2200. Okay, or even a little bit smaller than that. With that little bit of a range, if you're just below that range, you'll still be losing body fat, but at a slower rate. And this is where, if you've been dieting for a while, then we'll put you in a calorie deficit just outside of that range. But what will happen, because you don't want to cause more stress on the body because you've been chronically stressed, but what will happen is your body will quickly downregulate to the bottom of its maintenance range. So now that calorie deficit that on paper looks like it should be 300 or 400 calories a day, in reality, with your body's downregulated thyroid, downregulated NEAT, so you're not fidgeting as much, also less sleep, not training as hard, not pushing as hard, not moving as much, this then downregulates your daily calorie burn to maybe only 100 calories over your deficit. So you're burning calories, you're still losing body fat, but God, feels like it's so slow. And so we feel like, well, hey, then I'll drop my calories even lower. And the problem with dropping our calories even lower is that when we drop our calories lower, it becomes harder to get those particular nutrients in. When we drop those calories lower and our body already knows, hey, she's dropping calories lower, it's time to drop our vital functions down to baseline, down to humming on low battery mode, basically, you're not going to be building any new muscle tissue that will secure your ability to maintain the fat loss results that you're chasing. And that's really, really important to note, is the diet you are pushing so hard to adhere to that is way too low calories, because of your inability to adhere to that diet for a long time. And if you do adhere to that diet for a long time, then you can drift into eating disorder territory because it's too low for your body to function properly. It's also too low for you to be retaining the current muscle mass you have, no matter how hard you're training, and also too low to be actually building any new metabolic tissue that's going to help you to preserve keeping the body fat off. So you can maintain your weight around that 200 to 300 calorie window because the body self-regulates beautifully when she's fed properly and not under chronic stress. Now, you may find that you have been someone who has eaten a lot more calories than what you want to be eating around your maintenance. And this is also where we can look and identify other stresses in your life, or it could potentially be a bit of a gut health thing. Now, a gut health thing could be simply a parasite or a bacteria, and if you've ever gone to a foreign country and you've gotten a bit sick, you've gotten gastro or traveler's diarrhea, something similar like that, you're going to find it's pretty easy to have parasites in you that might not be, not the good kind, but might not be the kind that can stay dormant and don't really affect your everyday life. So when it comes to low energy availability, again, we want to make sure we're getting enough calories in for our body to metabolically thrive as best as possible. So eating too little for too long downregulates thyroid hormones, estradiol, or estradiol, which is estrogen, progesterone, luteinizing hormone, and follicle stimulating hormone, your metabolic rate, bone turnover, so healthy bone tissue. And this is why when we're chronically underfeeding ourselves calories, women lose their periods, they lose energy, they lose muscle, and they retain fat when they chronically undereat. It becomes so much harder to actually see that lean physique you're trying to build because you are physically not giving your body a chance to actually create and become that version of you. So this is a really beautiful slide from my current mentors at time of recording, from a women's health workshop or masterclass that we did. And it's just a little bit more information, so you can screenshot this and read through it, but it basically just runs through a few more of the effects of chronic undereating or chronic calorie deficits, e.g. bodybuilding preps. This is all textbook, which again, I've done too. I loved them. And if I could have continued to practice the cognitive dissonance, I probably would have done another one. But we need to remember that reproductive suppression, okay, if we're not having our hormones functioning properly, we're probably going to lose our period. If we don't have our period, we're probably going to suffer a little bit more bone loss, okay? An athlete with no period typically has 5 to 15% lower bone mineral density than peers with a period and a higher rate of stress fractures. So you're pushing yourself into the ground to achieve all of these great sporting feats with no cycle, yet the moment you get injured, the injury is terrible, okay? We've then got thyroid and metabolism. So of course, low energy availability lowers thyroid hormones and resting metabolism. And endocrine disruption happens, cortisol rises and often stays chronically high, which then promotes muscle and collagen breakdown instead of recovery. Cortisol, long story short, is a bit of a storage hormone. So it makes it quite easy for you to hoard and store extra body fat. We're not sure when we're going to eat again, so we need to keep the thing that takes the longest to break down. And if we need to pull glucose from somewhere, which our body is very good at turning things into glucose because we need glucose to survive, if we're not eating enough calories, our body will then convert the lean tissue that it has into glycogen, basically, or into glucose for our body to run, for our energy to function. So long story short, with that, if our cortisol is chronically high, we're in a catabolic state and we're chewing through our hard-earned muscle, okay, but we're also not going to be losing much body fat. And this cortisol doesn't have to be raised from a stressful life. It can simply be elevated because you have chosen to reduce your calories so many times without actually having a period of maintenance or eating a bit more. Then psychological. Of course, women with lower energy availability often experience mood and anxiety issues and have disordered eating behaviors. And of course, chronic low-fat diets can lead to estrogen dominance, fat malabsorption, and biliary stasis. So this is really important to note, is that with estrogen dominance, fats as well, in terms of, again, keeping our gut nice and healthy, or one of the things that can help to keep our gut nice and healthy, that's a whole nother conversation. If we are having excess estrogen in our body that is finding it really difficult to flush itself out and to detox itself out, that can then manifest in additional inflammation and potentially lead to high estrogen illness and disease later down the track, e.g. breast cancer. So really important, again, it's not just reducing the calories and seeing a result. Your body needs calories to function. And if you have chronically reduced your calories, you're going to really struggle to see progress in the direction that you want to without giving your body a good stint of time. Like I'm talking, some of my girls, we go on health optimization phase journeys and we're there for 6 or 9 months eating enough food because the nervous system is really good at remembering. And so the moment you go back into a diet, it's like, oh God, the food's going again, drop everything back down. We want to train our body that, hey, I'm safe, I'm metabolically healthy, I'm strong, and I feel good. So when it comes to calories, how do we know how many to aim for per day? This is where we've got our TDEE, and TDEE is basically total daily energy expenditure, and it's made up of our BMR, which makes up the bulk of this, and then it's made up of our NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, our fidgeting, that sort of a thing. We have our thermic effect of food just at the top. And then we have exercise. Now, how in the bloody what is exercise? 5% of the total daily calories we burn a day. This is where, again, it's really important that you understand your body and the amount of calories she can probably house comfortably and thrive optimally is a lot higher than what you think. And this is where if you have not been eating that amount for a while and your body has downregulated, the cool thing about our maintenance range and the cool thing about our body is when we start eating more, we start fidgeting more. So we start having more need, we start moving around, we start using the calories we're eating. We're physically burning more calories just to break down the food that we're eating. And we're exercising and pushing harder and burning more calories too because we're eating more. So this is where when it comes to eating more, not less, if you're struggling with your body fat, it may just be about hanging around at your maintenance calories and eating good quality food versus trying to go into all these hard deficits only to never stick to it because you're chronically underfeeding and then binging at the same, on the opposite end of the stick. So to find your maintenance range, we want to find your calculated TDEE, which is total daily energy expenditure, and then oscillate about 150 to 200 calories on either side of that. So think of your metabolism like a phone battery. If power saving mode is on, it doesn't mean your phone is broken. Might mean she functions a little bit slower. Might mean the screen isn't as backlit as she usually is. It doesn't mean that your phone is broken though. It means it's protecting the phone from dying that quickly. And your body is the same. It is slowing things down in a means to protect you. And even though you're like, hey, we're safe, like I just want to go to the gym and lose a couple fucking kilos, your body doesn't know that if it's never actually had a chance to feel safe in the environment for it to utilize the calories properly. So we'll get into the next one in a moment.